What's up, guys? Welcome back for yet another video on the 55. So we left off getting that header all dialed in, and that's all squared away now, so happy about that. And we are getting the last of the 4-speed linkage for the clutch ordered, and we still need a flywheel and clutch, so that way we can finish the fab on that, and all the major fabrication will be finished up on that. So let you know where I'm at. We talked about that the car is getting wired, so what I've been doing while Jason's working on that, which we will have a video on that in the future. I got the new steering column bushing installed, and I was just checking how it fits and all that stuff. So it's nice and taut. I got the new turn signal switch in, new wiring, new horn wire. Got the retainer plate all put in as well. Got a new turn signal lever, and then we're waiting on a couple other turn signal assembly stuff. So once we get that in the mail, we'll be able to tie all this up and tie up the clutch as well, which will be exciting. But another big achievement is we finally got the rear wheels in and got those done and got the slits back mounted on them. So we finally got our 5-inch bolt pattern wheels, and these lug nuts are just on there for the time being. But we finally got these back on, and it looks killer. Came out exactly how I envisioned it. Sticking out beyond the quarters just a little bit. So they turned out pretty awesome. So where I'm at right now is we're cleaning up the gauge cluster, because Jason got it all rewired. So as you can tell, this is all kind of nasty. So here's a little before shot. So I'm going to pull this apart, clean up the glass and the chrome and all that, get it all prettied up, put back together. And then I think come Monday, we're going to mount the front end on it so you can wire up headlights and stuff, and so I can cut the hole for the scoop and mount that as well. So should have some bunch of good forward progress in this video. So anyway, let's get working on this gauge cluster here and get it cleaned up. There it is after a quick cleanup. You can tell the original plastic/glass piece got some scratches from being wiped down over the years, and the chrome's still pitted, but shined up pretty good. Good enough for this car anyway. So we'll be able to move on to the next step and the next thing I'm going to address, but overall, I'm pretty happy with it. Okay, left off showing you guys I was getting the gauge cluster cleaned up, and Jason's went through and labeled everything. Got it all tied together, so it'll be ready to install. Tail lights got their new weather pack connectors on, and they're all labeled as well. So that way, when we go to throw those in, they are ready to go. And then got the intake off of it, so that way we can get the front end tossed on. And that way I can mark the hole to drill in my little top cover there to be able to get these carburetors to fit through if and when we run those 4-inch spacers. Obviously those are undecided on if we're going to run them or not, because they may end up hurting the engine more than helping it, but we won't know till we dyno it. So that in lies a lot of fabrication, making the linkage work that high in the air and being able to make it work, you know, down low. So we'll have to do some, you know, fabrication to make that be able to be interchangeable, but that's a whole different realm and video in itself. But we're gonna get on putting this front end in. That way he can wire up headlights, turn signals, running lights, all that fancy stuff. And that way I can also do the hood scoop as well as cut the hole for these. So we'll take you along and see what I figure out on how I'm gonna do this scoop and how I wanna do the hole for these. So should be pretty simple, but we'll see. as you saw, we just got that front end tossed on, got it bolted back up temporarily. And while we got this thing bolted up, before we took the intake off, I took a measurement from the cowl to this, the length of this and the width of this, and got my marks made on the actual scoop cover itself. So I got my center line and then measured out as far out as I want it to go. And I'm obviously going to stay in the inside of those just a little bit. That way I know I have plenty of wiggle room. I just don't want to get too far which way, which it really won't matter. But anyway, let's get to cutting this thing. Got a little bit more trimming to do. I kind of like where my line's at over here. Clearance this a little bit more. And then probably run down this line on this side. And then I'll probably run this in kind of like that. Nice radiused front edge. And then we will have to pull the back one off every time just due to this brace I built. I did that in a previous video a while back. But anyway, yeah, this won't fit right now, but we'll show this later on. But yeah, looks pretty cool. All right, we got the hole cut in the hood, as you guys saw. Got some stuff marked here. Trace this, and I'm probably gonna bring it from this point over. That way it's a little cleaner so it's not flat, and then dip in. And then obviously I gotta section this a little bit more on this side. But anyway, as of right now, we've got the last bit of parts in to wire the car. So we are ready to mount the battery box in the trunk, run that wire, and then Jason can finish the wiring because the front end's on it. But we're gonna change some stuff around the shop because we're finally back on track on being able to work on everything we got. And we just got to shuffle some stuff around. The 55 will be going in the lift bay area so I can do the clutch as well as Jason finish wiring it. And we're going to bring one of the other cars over here that's ready for sheet metal because we were finally able to find sheet metal at an affordable price. So we're going to get everything moved around and get the shop cleaned up. So, all right, guys, we got, which I think I already included, getting the shop all shuffled around and clean. So we're good there. Got this over on the lift for now. And I think before we get crazy, I'm gonna go ahead and get started on finishing up this 4-speed linkage. So we got the frame bracket that we needed, which is this guy right here. So I got everything else. And when I get the car up a little bit, I'll go over with you guys what we modified to make this work. It's nothing too extensive. So anyway, let's get this thing up in the air and I will get that unpackaged and then show you guys what we got. Okay, so what we're working with here, get us a little light going. So there's your hole for the threaded ball socket for your bell crank. So as most of you know, I don't have the original one laying around with me, but here is your ball socket end right here. It's like a 1/2-inch thread, I do believe. Got your little rubber seal on there. So what we are running into is the conversion for running a 4-speed, and the early stuff is a 5/8-inch ball. And the later stuff, which was probably the most commonly used stuff, is like 11/16 or so. I can't remember, it's bigger. Anyway, I didn't want to have to modify the tube and trying to sleeve that bell crank or custom make a bell crank. We're just, time-wise, it's just not ideal right now. So what we did is Jason had some ball sockets that were 5/8 for earlier style stuff laying around. But with those smaller style is a smaller thread pitch, which obviously won't thread into the block. Instead of trying to run some threaded adapter or, this, that, or the other, we basically did my measurement on what the length's supposed to be with that factory one. And then what we did was cut that 5/8 inch ball off and tigged it onto here. So now we have the factory block thread with the collar here to tighten it up, and then our seal and the 5/8 inch shaft, 5/8 inch ball with the same shaft welded on and ready to go. So now I can thread this guy in, and then we can get our bell crank up there and put in place, bolt this to the pedal, and then that'll tell me exactly where I need to make my frame mount. So that being said, I want to mock this up really quick to make sure all this is going to work, and then I'll probably pop this header off, and that way it's not in my way. That way I can get in there and kind of grind the old mounting bracket off, and then should be good to go. And we'll obviously I'll check back in here once we get that knocked out and get it mocked up, and I'll show you guys how I'm welding this thing on. Going through and getting things mocked up here. So we started off the bolt for the clutch pedal arm that comes down, that has your bushing in it, come right out of the package, cross-threaded. Couldn't get the nut off. I had to get 2 wrenches and pry them apart, and those were cross-threaded right out of the box, so I had to tap both those, clean up the threads, got them in there, and we bought the Z-bar and everything to work for a stock style 55 4-speed, which I know they didn't come with 4 speeds, doing the conversion. And I went over the ball socket on the engine block. Well, now we buy the stock frame mount, and it's supposed to be 5/8 inch ball for both ends, which it clearly is. And then you get this, and you get this teeny little thing on there. So now you go to mount that. See if I can get the camera in here, which I know it's just dangling right now, but you go to put this in, that ain't gonna cut it. So now I gotta grind this off, knock this ball out, and wherever I put it, use the other ball that we have. Luckily I got another one, and then I've already measured how far it sticks out, so then I'll have to weld the new one in, then proceed to get all this stuff set up. So it's already been quite the nightmare getting this thing set up. It could be worse, but I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick and get that knocked out and done. That way it's ready to go. So we'll go ahead and, oh, here it is right here. So now I've gotta cut this thing down and weld it into the right distance. So yeah, always something. So we'll go ahead and knock this out so we can hurry up and get this done. All right, just gonna update you guys on what I'm doing here. Got the car back down a little bit so I can get in and get the clutch arm push rod off. I got everything just tacked into place here. Nothing's finalized yet, but I think I got it right where I want it. But that clutch bar is dragging the bottom of the hole, not allowing me to fully push the clutch in. So I'm gonna pop that bar off, elongate that hole a little bit, and then I'm gonna put it back together and see if we can get full articulation. And then if we do, I'll be ready to burn that pedestal in, and should have us a working clutch whenever we get a clutch in it. The last thing we'll have to do is probably make a custom adjustment rod there to go from the bottom of the bell crank to your clutch fork. And then this thing will be ready, which that's something that can be done at our place. I just want to get all the major fabrication done while I have access to the big welder and all of our tooling here. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick, and then we'll check back in again and see if we're getting the proper movement. Okay, kind of hard to film while doing this just because of the location, but anyway, we got us a working bell crank. I don't have it hooked up right now because I didn't want the heat transferring from my welds over to the bushing and melting it. But as you can tell, bell crank spins super freely. Got a little bit of back and forth play And that obviously goes away whenever you attach your clutch rod there. You know, that keeps it secured and where it needs to be. So we're all welded in and done. And now we may need a new clutch rod. This has been welded on before. So yeah, might need a new one of those. Not 100% sure, we'll see. But regardless, even if it's a little different length, you know, I got plenty of adjustment room in here to play with. So yeah, we now have a working bell crank for the clutch. So I'm pretty happy there. So she's nice and smooth. Like I said, it wiggles, but it doesn't come out, but it sits over in here. So you got plenty of ball coverage on each one. So she'll be all right once you attach the clutch rod and everything. I've already went in there and worked the clutch pedal back and forth. So it should be fine. So if not, hey, I'll cut it back apart and reposition it. But right now that bell crank is perpendicular, level, square. As you can tell, it spins smooth, and the floor is elongated for the clutch rod. And like I said, there's not really, that's the only spot the bell crank can go. You can't, you know, have it all up, and I mean, it's based right off that fixed block location. Comes over, it's level, it's welded in, we're good. And like I said, if we need a new clutch push rod, we will. But anyway, yeah, that's it. That's some of the last major fabrication for this thing now. Just getting a flywheel and a clutch and making that adjustment rod for the bottom for the clutch fork, the actual push rod itself. So I'm thinking we're going to have to use the one we have and shorten it quite a bit. But other than that, she's good to go. I'm pretty happy, and there's enough room to loosen up that pivot ball and the block and pull the whole bell crank assembly out. So yeah, I'll probably throw this wheel back on and we'll be ready to drop this thing back down. And Jason should be able to finish wiring this thing, and we'll get it out the door back to Dad's house to further start, you know, on the front end stuff. And on that note, I think we're going to end this video here. That's a pretty good step in the right direction for finishing up all the fabrication on this car. So I didn't mention it, but I did have to make a little extension on the bottom of this pedestal. I should have made my ball socket because I had plenty of room. I tried to cut it and match the factory one, not taking into consideration that's a Pontiac, not a small block Chevy. And I had to make about a 3/4 inch plate that I welded and set it further in so it could catch the bell crank and not fall short, obviously, and just the bell crank wouldn't have anything to attach to. So I did have to space it out about 3/4 of an inch, and I should have just done that on the ball socket and attached that right to the frame. But I didn't, even mocking it up, I didn't think it would be that far, but it was. But no big deal. It's all welded in. It's strong. It's done. So now all that last bit of fabrication is finished up on this. Jason's going to get it wired. And then all I have left to do is like cut the scoop, or the holes for the scoop, and that'll finish that up. And then basically it's just back to the mechanical stuff. And I do need to burn in the rear end, but we need a drive shaft first, I think, or at least something to mock up there to make sure my angle is spot on. But I think it's right where I want it. That's the last major welding job on it, is welding those leaf spring perches in. Minus that, really ready to get wired and start on all the mechanical stuff, and then getting this thing fired up, which that'll be in obviously future videos. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'm ready to move on to the next step. So hopefully I have a video out soon. If not, I'll incorporate some other stuff in between, and we will see you guys in the next video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and we're out.